Hello, everyone.
Everybody. Apparently, our intro just wanted to keep on playing.
And the intro is so good.
Gonna keep enjoying.
At least one and a third times.
Apparently, our intro just wanted to keep on playing.
Ooh, we got some feedback today. Got a little bit of loop.
We got a 3-second delay.
It's a beautiful thing.
For the big brother.
Just in case you didn't hear us clearly enough the first time, we want to make sure you got it 2 times. Right. Hi, everybody. We are here. Hello.
Yeah.
Happy November on the first snowy day of the year. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Hi. It's lovely. We might next time have a different spot, but today it was kind of iffy. So we're all coming in from various spots like normal. And
joining in virtually. It's a beautiful thing, a connection, because it allows for Tori. You're coming in from a different area, yes?
Yes, I am actually hailing from Los Angeles right now, y'all. It's 82 and sunny here. It's fine. I'm not trying to rub it in at all, I promise.
Your shirt sleeves and stuff. Yeah, no worries.
Windows are all open. The door was open early. It's terrible weather. It's
82 and sunny. It's why your hair is perfect.
That's what it is. It's the sun, honestly. And just a little tidbit of information for everybody out there. We are also going live on TikTok right now as well. Hi, everyone.
Keeping it hip.
Yes.
Staying on top of it. That's awesome. Yeah, so hi to our TikTok friends. Hello to our Facebook friends. Hello to those joining us from our website. Hello from wherever platforms you're finding us. We are here. Again, a little quick reminder. My name is Luna Alexander. This over here is Kate, the one and only Kate McLean. We've got Tori Weatherspoon joining us and also Nick Rowley. So your Ghostlight crew, again, on a snowy Sunday, joining together with our special guest, Renee back. We are so excited to have our guest join us. Hi, Renee.
Hello.
hello, Renee.
Hi.
You're also joining us from a remote location. Where are you coming from?
I'm actually at Brew, a coffee shop in Traverse City.
Nice.
I'm up north for my, I guess, whatever, normal straight job. I don't know what you call it. I have clients that I do virtual assistance work with, and sometimes I do on-site work. So that's what I'm doing this week. It's super fun.
Right.
No, that's awesome. And a good excuse to hang out in Traverse City. And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's Traverse City. That's always fun. There's almost certainly wine and other things. So.
I can imagine, like, right now in the fall, it's exceptionally gorgeous and just, like, beautiful. I've never seen Traverse City when you're supposed to, like, right when you're supposed to. So
with the lake effects making
Yeah.
it.
Right.
What's his name? James Kincaid or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Thomas.
right.
Kincaid,
Thomas
yeah.
Kincaid. There you go.
Yeah, it just snowed for the first time today when I was driving up, and it's melted off here, I think, a little bit, but the trees were incredible seeing that, blanket of snow on them as I was driving up today. Pretty inspiring.
Yeah. I will say, as much as I don't like the cold, because I don't like the cold, I'm not that person, but aesthetically
Beautiful.
gorgeous. I'll look at it all day long. Like, if it could be warm and look like snow, I'm down for that. Like 85 and there's just like this fluffy stuff. That sounds great.
Okay, so we're gonna send you a care package full of Thomas Kincaid jigsaw puzzles, and you should be able to occupy yourself through the winter.
Perfect.
It's
Let it
puzzles
snow,
of
let it
light.
snow.
It's puzzles of light.
I'll send you a tin of Courier and Ives too.
Love it.
Oh, man, I love it. And as we speak, RT is going off in our space. So I'm actually going to let Kate take the screen for just a moment. I'll be right back.
So Luna's going to be tea mother, and I'll visit with you while we're waiting on her.
Okay. Well, while we wait, let's have Renee tell us a little about yourself. You're from the Flint area.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your work in the Flint area.
Sure. So I graduated from U of M Flint. I went for theater, got a minor in dance, and I graduated from there in 2010. While I was there and immediately after I graduated, I participated in some but found theater, like in found spaces. I participated in some verbatim theater where they talked about things like the Flint fires. One summer we had 300 fires in the space of 1 month. In the neighborhoods around in and
I
around.
remember that.
Yep, they laid off a bunch of firefighters, and immediately afterward, there were just tons of arson cases. So we did a theater project for that. We also did a theater project around the emergency manager. That was a theater company called Shop Floor Theater Company. It was a short-lived theater company, as often happens. And but that was incredible work that I was able to be a part of. I've done, I think the first, I guess, verbatim or sort of elevated speech and sort of shadow work piece that I did was with an artist who was visiting to the university. His name is Will Power, and he helped us do.
He is, yes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about him. Finish your story, but yes, we'll talk about him later.
It's all his fault. So he came in, he was a visiting professor, and he helped us write pieces that were vignettes almost with heightened language that were based on like people that we knew in our neighborhood. And so there was shadow work that had to do with that, but also, and I'm just going to go there, while he was there, he was profiled by a university security person. And in fact, he was standing in front of a picture of himself in the theater lobby. And the cop was white and menaced him and was like, you need to blah, blah, blah. You need to do this. Starting to get violent. And it was a mess. Well, and I'm not trying to, it has nothing to do with Will. Will was incredible. But this happened is a great highlight of how, even in theatrical spaces, we think that like we can be artists and we can have these insulated experiences that you don't have to, you can lock out the world and just be with your people. And that's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to add too, just for a second, Renee.
Yeah.
Because Renee and I know each other. We went to school together at U of M. I decided to pursue the second half of my degree, and she was one of my classmates. And I can tell you that she's being incredibly humble in this moment. The reason I say that is because she's sort of just listing a few things on her resume. But the reality is that I spent 3 years around Renee watching her immerse herself in the self-discovery of Renee while working through these projects. And I've got to tell you, at the collegiate level, at the undergraduate collegiate level, I came back to school at 40 years of age. So I was in a very different headspace, and I got a chance to watch my younger classmates and their evolution. And Renee was one of the people that really kind of started near that point where you begin to discover yourself as an artist and go ahead and open yourself up vulnerably as that artist. She started out there, so it was kind of like her peers had to catch up to her, and I enjoyed watching that. I appreciate that. It sounds kind of funny, but I enjoyed watching it because as a mature actor and as a much older actor, I got to see where you were going to be able to evolve in a different way than some of your classmates.
Man, and what
you took right.
Yeah, thank you. And what an incredible, like I was born in Flint, lived there until I was 13. My mom lost our house. There was a divorce and it was messy and blah, blah, and then I moved in with my dad in the suburbs and it was awful and I came back as soon as I could. And Flint is a great place to be humble because you learn really fast. You can't come in with any sort of type of attitude. There's everything I will tell you, I'm not exaggerating, everything that I have learned about activism, everything that I've learned about shadow work, everything that I've learned about respect, I have learned from particularly people of color in Flint. And it's just, thank you for that, Kate. I appreciate the recognition of that. I also just being able to like explore shadow work in a place that has so much unprocessed, unseen, willfully oppressed stuff to unpack.
Yeah, and when we were at school, Flint was pregnant.
2008, yep.
Many problems.
Yeah.
There was, it kind of culminated in the water crisis, but like she said, the Flint fires had a lot to do with that. Yeah. There was the whole, Joe's in charge now of the murals that are going through town, but there was that whole push and pull between the taggers and the city, and Vehicle City coming kind of to pieces, and then the land bank where they were stealing homes for $3 owed on property taxes. And so, I mean, this was just Flint was pregnant with this kind of,
and it still is.
It's still absolutely, like, there's still not safe water in Flint.
No,
right. And the fact that we were in an institution of learning that it had one foot in the door of, hey, be exploratory, and another foot in, we're beholden to these people. This institution doesn't function without all this. It was a tight wire. There was a tight wire walk, and Renee knows that, the end of my career there was not the same as a lot of people because of that. Yeah. So, and we'll talk about that another time. But you know what I'm
love
talking
to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, though, Renee. Yeah. And that we were front row, and we were the speakers. We were expected to be the speakers because we were the performance group in the city.
Right. I'm actually kind of curious about that, just 2000. Wow. Creating art in 2008 in Flint, is a very specific type of shadow work, kind of to your point, Renee. And I'm curious, for both of you.
Yeah.
How has that impacted kind of how you look at making art now? And excuse me, this is this is just literally bouncing off of and kind of continuing your original question. So, but how does that affect you both as artists now and placemakers, as people making great spaces right now?
I'm going to let you tackle that one first, honey.
Oh, I got all kinds of things to say.
Right?
I will tell you first, I have no patience for mainstream theater. I like to watch a show. I love musical theater to watch. I just cannot. I've done a couple of things over the past few years. It's just not, I have no patience for it. If it's not a particular uprooting, picking apart, mirroring, talking, amplifying voices, like I don't. I can't make myself, and not that I have, like, it's not like I have to. Nobody owes me that, but I will say that. And then as far as it affecting otherwise, I think about this a lot. So Janet Haley, which of course I'm going to bring her name up. It's like,
of course,
countdown, because she was like my mentor, and like I wanted to be her best friend, and we were for a while, and that's all great, and
my
move on and whatever. Don't you? I believe you. That happens. So she said something about how whenever she has like a task that she's bored with, she just imagines that she's on stage. And I think about that kind of sometimes, not necessarily on stage as far as being observed. And I can't say what she necessarily meant about it, but for me, being on stage, in fact, what I mean is like, how do you come to a moment of ritual? And theater is, I think, one of the enduring and perhaps maybe only places of public ritual that are not institutionalized in religion that we have left. And so how do I have that feeling of like magic and moment and placemaking and lighting, and what does this make me want to do in every moment, even if I'm doing something that's just incredibly mundane.
Sure.
And that helps to maintain resiliency. And, theater makers go years without making theater. That's a normal thing. Or at least it's normalized. I don't think that it's necessarily something that we should
Normal.
accept.
Neither normal nor healthy, but it's normalized.
Healthy,
You're right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Normal is a
That's-
setting on the washer. You know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's it's as kind of good as we can do.
Yeah. So Kate, I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, because I like, first of all, I 1000% agree with what you say. And up until I went to school in Flint, at the time that I went to school there, I was, for lack of a better phrase, and I think Renee can back me up on this, an incredibly institutional actor. And I don't say that
you had a lot of strong background.
Sure.
I don't say that in a bad way, but I would, my first foray into undergraduate theater, I was matriculated in the classics and the original concept of a merry band of players, right? In that it's an absolute dictatorship and a chain of command, but it's also a very organic being of family. And, you know, we're linked at the heart and the soul. So we care for and look after one another.
Sure.
And then I got to Flint, and here I am. I'm 40 years old. I'm getting ready for a divorce. And I'm now like, I'm the old broad in the theater class, right? What was great about the atmosphere was that people like Renee, and I can name at least a dozen or more other students, absolutely under no circumstances shut me out. And maybe it's partly because UM Flint is very much a satellite school. So there are a lot of, you know, late attendees. There are a lot of older attendees, but not in the theater department. You don't have 40-year-olds showing up for a theater degree.
But we should.
But we should, exactly.
I was gonna say.
And because of that, like, I could meet my compatriots in my language arts class or in my math class or in my science class. But then I got to my theater classes, and rather than my classmates kind of shunning me going, what is this broad doing here? They all were like, so you've been on TV.
Dude,
Because you know, this is awesome, and I'm paying a hell of a lot of tuition, but I'm not getting some like serious hardcore info about when the rubber meets the road. They all picked my brain. They all had an immense amount of respect for the work, the body of work that I brought with me.
Kate, you're incredible. How could you not be respect? Like, I don't. How could we be any other way? Like, you got on stage and you were like, oh, Shakespeare, no big deal. Oh, we were like, excuse me, I'm 21. I don't even know.
And then the other part of that, and I think it's great that Renee brings up Janet Haley, because she was her mentor, and for the way that Janet works and the kind of persona and her approach to theater, I think she's ideally suited for U of M Flint because of Flint. I really do. By the same token, she and I ended up being arch nemesis almost moments after I arrived. And the reason was, and it took me a whole 3 semesters to figure this out. And I don't by any means discount the worth of it, because it had value for me after the fact too. But the reality is Janet Haley and I are exactly the same age.
Okay.
Here I was coming in, somebody who had, for all intents and purposes, checked off all the boxes on the stuff that I wanted to do in theater and film and television, right? I had been a stunt woman. I was a Shakespearean actor. I was off Broadway. I was on TV. I did all these great things. And I'm Black and from Saginaw.
Right.
And she's this 4'11", absolutely gorgeous, tall drink of water with hair behind. Statue, like chiseled jaw, the whole 9 yards.
Incredible.
She's white and she's from there, but I figured out, and again, it took me a while because Janet and I always worked in we were like mirrored ends of polarized magnets.
Right.
We would get so close within a space and then repel one another. And what I discovered was the box that I never got to completely check off was that really and truly what I wanted to do was be like my mentor, who was a Shakespearean actor and director and doctor of theater philosophy and college professor. I wanted to be like him. Janet had my ideal job. And Janet was in a job where she absolutely is ideally suited, but it bothered her a little that she had a lot more gravitas just by who she was than I did. And it was kind of like being a satellite collegiate professor was not the pinnacle of her dreams. So there was some kind of contention because it was a gift of the Magi. I want what you've got.
So
and I want what you've got.
How were you able to reconcile that?
Janet and I still don't get along. I don't deal with her, and that's why I don't audition at Jackson. I don't audition
you got two people
she's
who are
a company member.
Deeply talented, strong personalities.
Right.
I mean,
But
the world
she
pits you against each other.
Right.
So
I'm a
two
classical.
women, forget it.
I'm a classical and classically trained artist, and she is absolutely a dyed-in-the-wool theater of cruelty, shock jock. She can take a classical concept, Cherry Orchard, and flip it on its head and make it absolutely relevant for right here and right now. I cannot do that without a great deal of work.
Right.
You know,
so you were unlearning it.
We are on opposite sides of the planet. We are on opposite sides of the spectrum, and we have a desire to be standing where each other is. So that's the conflict. And yet we worked it out.
And you worked it out. And I love that part. That's what we, in theater do, is that when we have polar, maybe you've got a little sun and moon energy in the same room, we still collaborate and make something interesting.
Yeah, she
happen.
cast me all the time anyways.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible collaboration between the two of you. The chemistry.
It was. Oh yeah, the tension created genius.
Great. It was great. Here's to y'all,
But it's that Terry Pratchett thing when he's talking about witches, but he's just in general talking about people with power.
Yeah,
it's cats in a bag. You know what I mean? Like you put two cats in a bag, they bump up against one another, basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the friction and the spark they create are magnificent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Friction and sparks. Absolutely. So we're talking about, modern versus traditional. And so with that being said, let me ask you, what do you think we as an audience can get from seeing theater in non-traditional spaces?
Kate, you go first this time. I went first last time. I'm just trying to be fair.
You get a whole new perspective. Again, it's just like you've redecorated the room and you still don't feel the feng shui until you stand in the doorway and you catch the vibe from the right place. Like it's turning the world on its head, because the first way to learn something new is to get out of your head what you already know about it. And new spaces, new concepts, new ideas, because there's no such thing as an original idea, right? There's 15 stories that have 50,000 extrapolations, and you've got to rewrite the creation story again and again and again. So you can't look at it like that uphill climb. You have to look at it like, well, if I stand on my head, what does it look like? Right. I came across a meme today on the Grandma Space Facebook, right? And all it said was, how long did it take me to figure out what this picture was? And it looked like a dog, but half of his face was a dog's face, and the other half looked like maybe it was his ass and something else, And I couldn't figure. I spent 20 minutes trying to figure it out. I had no idea what this is either. So I went into the comments, and somebody said, turn your phone 180 degrees. And I did, and all it was the dog doing this. But it changed. What the hell is this kind of, push me, pull you, cat dog thing? And then all of a sudden I went, oh, wow, if you just change your perspective, the world completely falls into place. That's what I think, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a lot about, I'm trying to riff off of what you said, but I don't think I can. I'm going to go in a slightly different direction, although I really like it. So we are in a place in our society, at least particularly in the United States, I would imagine in lots of other places, we've lost our connection to the land. And in particular, we are being oppressed and divorced from our connection to the land, making us believe that to exist, I have to have a laptop, and that laptop has to come from mining these things that not only ruin our ecosystem but also put people into slavery. Right. So under the context of a fascist system, that convinces us that to exist is to be so violent. Placemaking in theater helps us to come to a more secure attachment to place. And additionally, if we're talking about Flint, which I always want to, there are so many ghosts of oppressed people. We have statues of people. We have a Mott statue across the street from like wherever there's like used to be Brown Sugar Cafe, like right out on Saginaw Street. I was just there with a friend of mine, spit on the fucking statue. Sorry if I'm dropping F-bombs and I'm not supposed to, but
No, you're allowed to.
Oh, no,
good.
no,
Fuck that man.
Family.
100%. Like we have statues of old rich white men on the top of soil that's not even ours. Like disgusting. And where we are right now, we don't. It's partially orchestrated that way, and partially because it's been that way for a few generations, not that long, but a few generations long enough for us to forget and become really weak. To be me too. So to approach these spaces and find out like what does this space tell me? What does it want to say? Is that uncomfortable? Where are the ghosts screaming? Because the spirits that are in Flint are loud, and the river,
And they are many,
and they're mad, and they should be.
mm-hmm.
And getting into right relationship with the land is necessary to start addressing the atrocities that we are both victim to and perpetuating on a regular basis. And let me also just go a step further and say, I mean, the thing that we need to do before we address anything else theatrically, I in my idea, I guess, under the parameters of this, is give land back to Indigenous people and let them figure out what they think is good for placemaking, theater, ritual, that sort of stuff. But until that can happen, arriving without an agenda other than to listen and to connect and to become in better relationship with the land. That's where I'm at with that.
I like that. I would totally agree. And you guys all already know our crew right here. I talk frequently about remaining or becoming grounded, because really when you connect with the land, even if it's just long enough to take off your shoes and feel the dirt, you connect with the place that you are. And when you can energetically connect and send your energetic roots down into the ground and kind of hook into the earth, what happens is it speaks to you. It speaks to you.
It does.
It speaks to you spiritually. It speaks to you emotionally. It speaks to you physically. As soon as your feet touch the ground, your energy changes. And the more grounded we become as theatrical practitioners, then the more we can infuse that into the speeches we make, into the monologues, into the dramatic pieces, into the silence. Sometimes silence is meaningful.
Beautiful, yeah.
Now, when you make an impactful statement and then the response is quietness, just stand and hold space in that silence while it absorbs physically and energetically into the receiver, while you are firmly planted on the floor or the ground of what it is that you're saying. You're connected.
Expansive enough to hold that, right?
Right. You created a new energetic field that then raises the vibration. And what happens when you raise the vibration? The light comes forward, and as soon as the light comes forward, you see the whole shadow. You see the whole.
Yeah, I think there's something really interesting, again, as we talk about the Ghostlight and this moments that theater offers us of being able to work out trauma in a place where we're able to experience or see it, where Maybe there is some healing that's going beyond just the immediate physical audience that's watching it. You know, I think that's a really important thing to consider, and you know, in general, to consider when we're doing theater in spaces is what are the ghosts that are there? How does this story contribute and help heal wherever you're doing? So I think that's a really good thought as we're continuing to rethink placemaking, as we're rethinking where our stages are beyond the conservatory, you know, training that a lot of us have had.
Even theater of cruelty on the street corner, you know, has its place. I mean, it has value and value added in places like Flint. You know, I was part of the Ride of Detroit, which was, you know, an internet-based radio station here in Detroit for a while. And one of the things that we did was just went out live into the street. And whether there was something going on or not, we would invariably run into something that needed to be spoken about or talked to or what have you. We were live in effect all the time, but that was a form of theater of cruelty. Like, the city hasn't opened any warming houses and it's the third snow day of the year and power is out. So we're out in effect on internet radio, shoving microphones in Mike Duggan's mansion to the car going, "Hey, Livonia Mike, real quick, since you're running Detroit, you think you can turn the lights on in a couple of abandoned buildings? See you, have a great day, hey." Like, that's, I mean, yes, it's a radio broadcast, but that's kind of theater of cruelty live in effect, and it's kind of like a smash and grab. I mean, you leave a mayor who doesn't live in the city that he's also not managing on air going, but my girlfriend is cute, you know, and okay, now we know where we stand with you. And it's a moment. It's like what does Pink Floyd say? He calls it a momentary lapse of reason. Please don't make me pay for that. But that's exactly what it is. It's that moment where you catch them outside of their ability to control the environment. And all of a sudden you get to see all of the under feathers. Sure. What color they are and which direction. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that we were talking about ghosts, but there are other things as well in all of these areas. You know, there are other things in the shadows. And so, you know, we talk a lot about shadow work in our spaces, but what does that term mean to you, Renee? I
Yeah.
mean, what does shadow work mean? How do you apply it? You know, those kind of connections.
Yeah, great. So the first time that I heard the term shadow work was, so I've been practicing pagan since I was old enough to know what it was. So I mean, and I probably heard that in terms of, at the time, where I thought that I needed to be was Wicca. I've learned since then that is not the narrative that I want to be about. But at the time, you know, in the 90s and Llewellyn and all that, Silver Raven Wolf and all that stuff, you got to start where start where you start. I like you start. It's okay. I mean, it is what it is. But that's probably around those times is when I started to hear the word shadow work. And I think a lot of people can't conceptualize it right away, right off. But it really resonated with me from the get-go, in that there's a phrase in paganism: to light a candle is to cast a shadow, right? And I don't know if that's there might be an author for it, I don't remember. But there is no light without shadow. And so shadow work is about not only looking at the ugliness of what might be around you, or the darkness that might be around you, and I could get into colorism around that, and racism.
In paganism,
but the whole dichotomy of light versus dark, and like, but having said that, not just looking at what's around you and what you may not have been responsible for, but more importantly, in some ways, looking at your accountability and sitting uncomfortably with realizing how abuse, oppression, fascism, racism, everything, all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a totally me philosophy. I don't think we break and fragment and become mentally, I guess, unstable, if you want to call it that, because of the things that necessarily happen to us. What I think is what happens is we start to see how we're perpetuating it, and we can't. We fucking can't, because that's too much.
Yeah.
And shadow work tells us to love ourselves, because we have to. Listen, I'm a white lady. I know that I've got racism inside of me. It's never going to go away. I have to see it every day. And like, boo-hoo, poor me, but at the same time, you have to see how we're all affected by the incessant, perpetual, relentless cruelty of our world. And to sit with it and say, I'm going to love myself anyway, because I deserve liberation. Because if I don't get liberated, if I don't move towards that, that's going to come out on other people who are more vulnerable than me.
Yes.
We got to get together. Fred Hampton said, we got to get together. We can't keep fighting each other like this.
Right.
What got you here won't get you there.
Yes.
Right.
But that includes pointing out, like, I see you're doing this behavior, right? And then for me to be like, oh.
Yep.
And then be able to sit with that and say, why did I think that was an okay thing to do? So that's what I think, like, and not just in racism, not just as in oppression, but also in just whatever other stuff that might come out. I mean, we're human, so we make mistakes. And so shadow work is about that, in my expert opinion.
Very well.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really, and to have what an amazing thing that we are as humans. We've come up with this tool where we can see a mirror of ourselves reflected, whether it's Shakespeare, whether it's a devised piece of spoken word, and we can relate to, see, and embrace the shadow self that we see on stage sometimes, and we can see what that looks like in us too. So I'm loving what you said. You said earlier too that theater is one of those last spaces that we have that really isn't checked by religion. At least American theater, right? American theater is pretty. We're a far cry from the original Greek ritual, right? We have
it holds space for religion and ideology, but it doesn't require it to be present or even discussed at all. It doesn't require it to function in any
way. You can do so much when religion's not present. You can do so much experimentation. You can do so much self-inquiry.
Even when it is, but it's not. But it's not a load-bearing wall, to use an architectural term. When it doesn't have to hold up anything, and you can hold space for the conversation, but it doesn't determine outcome.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's absolutely space for religion and church and all that kind of stuff in theater, but it has no greater weight than the place for combat.
Right.
Than the place for discourse.
Right.
Than the place for active listening. Than the place for play. Than the place for pretend.
Place for play. I think that's actually a perfect segue. Thank you. Play's the thing. But we talk a lot about the healing power of play in this group, just as in general, that as humans, as anxious monkeys, we really learn best through play. And when we're able to work some of that out. And what I have been, I guess, heartened to see is a lot more cities including room in their placemaking budgets for arts, and to see non-traditional art in more public spaces. So I want to ask you, and I know this is some of your work, is also to create community, is community building. So what do you want to see? Like, ideally, we've got the next 5 years. A bunch of federal funding has come into Michigan for COVID, but also acknowledging other spaces. And so there are people who are asking you, Renee, what do we do with all this money? How do you ideally see theater in these public spaces kind of evolve and change? Sorry, that was a big one.
No.
Okay.
I just like to give it a space for a second sometimes, because there's so much. I mean, number one, people who are marginalized should get that money first, and companies that are doing the work to continue to support folks who are marginalized should get that money. Number one. I would love to see just more like community theater. That's okay. It's okay to just have community theater in public places. But I will tell you too, there's something that I've always wanted to do, for particular project. Do you guys know the Bacchae? It's a Greek play.
Oh, yeah.
I want to do that on a playground so damn bad.
On a playground?
On a playground.
I love that concept.
Lots of red fabric and like and then you move with the fabric and it happens, and I don't know. I want to do that.
Do you want to involve like one of those play structures? One of those big old forts that they have in the
yes, exactly that.
So many
I want that to be that.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's a sort of an allegory? Is that the right word for like what happens to us in childhood, right?
Yeah,
and the things that we are forced to emotionally view, and even physically, viscerally view and go through as children, and yet childism is real. Like, oh, you're a kid, you don't know, there's nothing happening, everything's fine, but it's happening.
Right.
It's happening to us, it's happening to our children. And I want to unpack that, but like overall, as far as like funding for public spaces or found art, I mean, I would love to see more site specific. There are so many really interesting pockets of different cities that are public spaces that don't generally get used by people who are nice people, right? They're usually relegated to people who don't have anywhere else to go. They can't pay for it. So without shutting those people out of those spaces, because that's what happens too. That's gentrification. Here come the artists and we're going to use the space, and sorry that you were sleeping here, but get out. Like, not so much that.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that happen. I would love to see more connection. I'd love to see more connection between people who are trying to help support folks who are homeless, houseless in our country, and placemaking theater. I don't know how that works, but I would love to see that.
Hell yeah. More theater for that person, that includes that person.
I did a piece called "Awaken the Walls," and it was in the fountain space in Flint. All that architecture, all that like cement, and there was a guy there. I don't actually know whether he was houseless or not, but he was just on the bank like fishing, and he caught a walleye or caught something, and was like, "Does anybody want to fish?" Like in the middle of our show. Like, I live for that. I think that's great. As long as we're not like being rude to people who are trying to use the space, like us as theater people, I think that's fantastic. I think that we should, and that opens up a whole conversation about how we treat our houseless people, because these people are out on the streets. They know more about our spaces than we do. Yeah. We don't know shit about our spaces at midnight when there's nobody else around. You know what I'm saying? And they do. We should be respecting them. They're out there. There's nothing, and they're just out there.
Yeah.
They're not even just out there. They're, to use a neighborhood phrase, they're holding us down.
Yes, they are. 100%.
They are doing far more than they are getting.
Yeah.
That's a very Diogenes moment too. The guy just like jumping in.
Oh yeah.
It's very behold a man.
Brilliant. I could never.
Indeed.
Right?
Okay, homo.
There's no fourth wall. What wall?
Exactly. I love it. I love
Right.
it.
So let me say something. So with that being said, I love that we're on this path of conversation, because I'm very curious to know, what do you believe, what do artists and actors get out of working on site specific shows?
What's that exchange?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great. I guess from my individual perspective, working on, and again going back to connection with the land. For me, most of my site specific work has been in Flint. Luckily, I've been really really lucky to do that. And as somebody who has grown up never not being aware that I've been divorced and cast, sort of, there's like a barrier between myself and being able to get in good with the land. That's what I have gotten from it. Another thing I think that people have talked about with me that they have gotten from work in site specific theater is, we rely a lot on our technology in theater. The lights, the sound, particularly the lights. And I remember working on Awaken the Walls, like people would be like, the light is, when you say, hey, look at me, I'm doing this over here, that's the light, the focus, the attention. We don't have to have a spotlight. You don't have to have, this is beautiful, whatever, gobos and stuff like that, those are great too. But getting into just site specific and working with the atmosphere and working with, there's nothing like it. You can't light something to make it look like it's outside enough. You just don't, it's not the same. And particularly there's a different energy level. We did a piece in the cemetery, and Glen, I can't remember the name of the cemetery now. Yeah, I had a great Glenwood. Love that place. It's a beautiful place. And I will tell you, it was energetically very vigorous. Just being outside, literally just standing, being outside for rehearsals. There's a particular toning in your system that you need, and I think that theater makers get that from being outside and being able to play and interbe. It's an animist term, interbeing. With where you're at. I think that's what theater people get from it.
Listen, that's a huge part of rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's where we stand on stage and we may be blocking or working with props or whatever, but we go over it, and by the third time, the director asks you, how did that feel? And that is 100% an energetic response.
Right.
Are we connected? Was I in the groove this time? It's when we're working on stage together, it's never was I in the groove. It's, did we hit that moment? Did we
absolutely, and not just like people, but we as in like everything that's here, whatever, whoever's here.
Right. Renee knows, and you guys probably know too, that one of my favorite things to say, because it's absolutely true, and my mentor taught it to me when I was an early undergrad, in that the final character that we add is the audience, and it's never the same twice, but that the reality is all of the work we do in rehearsal and in discussions and in reading and in research is in fact the work. When we get up on stage and we meet our final character and the wall is there, but it's more like a Venetian blind, right? The wall, but we now interact and energetically connect and sometimes verbally interact. But what happens is when we play.
Yeah,
and
play
that's
is
why
so
it's
important.
called a play, because we've done all the work. And by the time we fling the doors open for the Freeman to come in, if you will, it's now time to play. We get to play because we know this. We've lived this. It's become the fabric of us as a family. Now we're having you to dinner, the audience, and enjoy our household.
Yeah.
Make yourself at home.
I love that. And I think Renee, actually, you said something earlier about, it's not that we just break apart, right? It's this knowing that we're complicit in it. And there's some healing, I think, for artists when we're able to connect to the space itself.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the space itself gives, you get that from it
Some-
some resolution or some healing to it. You know,
Sometimes the only being that can understand the brokenness that you feel under this that we're under is the trees, is
Right.
you walk down the road and you're like, you've been paved over too. We're going through this
Right.
together. Right.
What is the very first thing that shows up on the very first page on the inside of every single script in the universe?
I don't
The
remember.
place.
Ah.
Yeah.
Without your sense of
Your
place, there is no character definitions, no casting, no the first production, no nothing. It starts with
Yeah.
this is where you are.
Yeah.
This is when you are. Now,
Yeah.
these are all the other elements we have to add. But that is probably the most important thing. The first element you have to capture is a sense of place. Otherwise, you can't tell the story because you can't tell the story from a perspective, from a context,
Yeah.
from existence. Place is everything.
I was just about to say, and context is everything. So if place is context and they're synonymous, that's everything. Because you could take a play, you could take an experience, put it in a completely different location, and it's going to give you a totally different feel. It's going to make you ask completely different questions
Place
of
to a
yourself
different
and
audience.
what's around you. Exactly. So speaking of the audience, I absolutely love this concept of the audience is the fourth character. I 100% believe that is true. And I got to see it. I actually got to see it in action last weekend. I got to see a live production out here of a show called Smoke. And I got to see it twice. It was phenomenal. I saw it once from the regular audience position. And then the second time I saw it from like a balcony position where I could see the show itself and the audience simultaneously. So I got to watch the audience's reactions to the things that were happening. And like, I would know something was coming up and I'd like look at the audience to see how they were going to feel. Now I will say that show was dealing with a lot of very heavy topics. It was dealing with trigger warning. It was dealing with some sexual assault. It was dealing with a lot like underage drinking was in there as well. There were some concepts and ideas that could have been triggering for you as an audience member. And I really liked the way that they made you, like when you purchased the ticket, there was a whole explanation, like here are the things, if you're triggered by these things, don't watch it.
Yeah.
And even after you've purchased the ticket, when you're checking in, they say again, please pull this up, please read it. I want to watch that you have read it because we're going to be talking about some really serious stuff.
We don't want you to be surprised.
Exactly.
Cruelty sometimes has an element of irresponsibility to it,
Totally.
and that is something that is really necessary.
In
Some of
the
it is, yeah.
advertisement, in the advertisement of the show, they like one of their promotional pictures was the word consent and the definition of that. And so
yeah.
I think, yes. So I think that is absolutely integral to have the audience consent as well to when you're handling these kinds of heavy loads, if you will.
Yeah.
So with that being said, one of the things that didn't happen in this show, in their production, but like I would very much like to move forward with the Ibis doing, is there was no audience after. So afterwards, I got the chance to talk to, it was only a 2-person show, and I got the chance to talk to both actors. And I asked them, I said, what do you do after doing a show like that to kind of like shake it off or get back to, because I mean, it was intense.
I'm laughing because all the coping mechanisms that I used to use were not healthy.
Right.
What do you do? I'll tell you what I do.
Well, like the one was, like back in the blanket, listen to music kind of thing. So it's like, so what do you do? What are your thoughts on something like audience aftercare? Because, I, as an audience member, I had the chance, because I'm an actor, I had the chance to talk to the actors after the show and have a rapport. But what about shows when you don't get the chance to do that? Like, what do you think what are your opinions on audience aftercare when we're talking about really heavy topics?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that we could really, if nothing else, one thing that we could really benefit from is leveraging social media for audience aftercare, assuming that they have access. But that, there's a forum up for a week afterward, and we can have a discussion board about this, and we can meet each other, and we can even network if you want to, but talk about the themes of the show I guess ideally after a show like that, there would be the opportunity to stay and maybe have a little, water, some snacks, alcohol if that's your thing, maybe some other if that's your thing, if that's what you want to do, and just let it hang out. I mean, there's so much doing this with our personalities, which personalities, I mean, it's controversial still, but I think that personalities are trauma responses, like in and of themselves. Didn't right? I didn't want to believe that the first few times that I heard it, but I think it's true. And then we're like narrow, like you have to be like this in front of other people or you're going to make them uncomfortable. We should get weird. Like be weird.
It's not just discomfort either. People narrow themselves because that's currency.
You're absolutely right.
For them to function within the parameters that they've either agreed to or not necessarily agreed to, but don't know how to get out of. You sometimes do what you do because it has currency in the elements that you're in.
Because it's dangerous not to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take, though, Renee, because, we talk about, traditionally people have talked about, it's character building. But character building is another way of saying your personality is a quilt of trauma responses sometimes.
Right.
That's a really great take. I really like that.
Yeah.
That's one we should put a pin in and explore further. Not tonight necessarily, but just in general. I actually really like that. So we have some regulars who watch the show, and they throw up questions and things. Hello, Bridget. Hello, Joey. Hello, Sabrina.
We love you guys.
Yes. And Joey actually had a couple, but the first one he brought up with this, which is there ever a temptation to blame the audience when the connection's not there? You do all of this stuff and it just doesn't land. Does that temptation arise?
Well, first of all, how do you know whether the connection is landing or not?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're on stage, like you're so. For me, when I'm performing, first of all, I'm a process person. Once we get up to the point where we're performing, I'm like, I cannot be bothered. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be invested, but it's just how I'm working on it. But then also it feels. I'm just gonna be real. Sometimes it feels like an insult if the audience isn't, or ha ha ha, or like yeah, or you don't feel that. But that doesn't necessarily mean like
that part.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, absolutely, Joey. Like there is so much talk backstage with actors that will be like, this audience is lousy tonight. And I think that that's a projection, of some insecurities. Actors are notoriously insecure. And we seek validation in the ways that our audience responds, and some of that's healthy and some of that's not. But you can't control. You have to have a healthy attachment, which means really it's all about how you respond to the moment, and it has nothing to do with what others are going to take from it, because you can't.
Right.
You can't predict.
You can blame the audience sometimes too, just because of the material. Like you've got blue hairs that come on Sunday matinee because they have season tickets, but for the Faust is like they're not going to get the jokes. They're not going to get Dante's Inferno. They're going to be way more concerned about. I just left church and I'm watching this play, and they're not going to connect. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but they might connect on another way, and that's okay.
Right. I mean, there's sometimes that you can blame them. Like, this grandma should have absolutely asked her granddaughter about this play and given her the ticket, because this is not her cup of tea. But
then that's just one person.
Right. And I will say, like, I think that there is again, the conservatory based structure, there is a combativeness against where it's almost the artist, us versus the audience kind of mentality. Not everywhere, and absolutely not a lot of spaces, but some places that's
Culturally,
very much,
Americans want to watch you fail, but
it's a
they kind of do.
and there is some of that, and I'm curious, as in some of these site specific theater things that I've done, I felt less of that combativeness in general because it is working with a community.
Mhm.
You're keeping it specific to things that community will value, right? So shouldn't more theater be like that? I don't know. I'm not trying to say what should or shouldn't be. I think interesting thought.
But even when it doesn't succeed, it's an opportunity for you to learn, right? It's an opportunity for you to explore your capabilities to reach out and your capabilities to not absorb that personally.
Yeah.
And this is where I confess that I am a terrible audience member. Like if something doesn't land to me and it's a quiet moment, I will make a noise. And it takes like the focus. I've been in audiences like that where like something didn't land for me and I made a noise and the audience was like, we were thinking the same thing. Then I gave them permission to laugh about it, but it wasn't a good moment to laugh. But then it sort of comes back to like, you have to let the audience have the response that they have. And it doesn't make it bad theater. It just means the audience is, and maybe it is bad theater. Like who fucking cares?
You're right about that.
Why do you have to do good theater all the fucking time? Jesus.
Well, that's true. Just like bad movies are, sometimes you watch a bad movie because it's just so bad it's good kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I totally get that. But I do want to say like that picks up some memories that I have when we talk about an audience and being against the audience of nights when I thought the audience hated it. I thought the audience was asleep. And afterwards they come up to you and they're like, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
I just didn't want to say anything because I was so immersed in this, absolutely.
And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, y'all was silent. Like,
you could have let a bitch know.
Let me know exactly.
Like, you never know when you're actually touching someone. You never know when you're actually reaching someone. You never know when you're actually like resonating with someone. And you could just be creating art and resonating with tons of people who just never tell you.
Right.
And isn't that life? You never know who you're going to inspire just by like existing.
Exactly. Yeah. And don't forget those shows too, where like nobody gets in the audience except that one dude. And then one
dude really gets it.
Every joke. He laughs at the jokes that you guys really, really worked hard 6 weeks on, and none of the audiences ever get it. And he got like all of them. And he's clapping out loud and he's laughing. He doesn't give a shit about any other audience.
I love that.
He doesn't get it.
We love you, Guy.
Right, but you as a cast end up directing all of your energy to him because he's feeding you, right? And you're just giving him everything. And then that becomes too like a cliff edge because we love the adulation and sometimes we go too far and then we end up mugging. And now it's like, yeah, he didn't deserve that, and neither did the rest of them. It's a roll of the dice, you know.
Yeah, it is a lot of.
It's like playing the lottery,
right?
Yeah. I hope I got the right number today.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So I really quickly. Sorry, did somebody start? No. Okay. So I'm just looking at the time, and this has been a really amazing conversation, everybody. Like it flew by so fast. I could keep talking another 2 hours about the idea.
For sure.
What did I tell you?
Personality. So, Renee, it's really lovely to talk to somebody who is this passionate and cares deeply about the evolution of theater, not just perpetuating what we've seen maybe, and that has so much, vision of where it's going to go, and so really quickly, I do want to shout out again to Joey. Thanks for giving us a couple of really good questions here. But hey, with doing theater in new spaces comes great responsibilities.
Hey.
So how do you get consent when you're doing open air theater? And I think that's a really great question because I think there's a few areas of consent that we could talk about. Passersby, whoever is on the land where it was originally needed to be given back to, but just maybe some thoughts about there. What are your ideas about consent and found theater?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had a piece and I said,
sure,
how do I make sure that this is people are giving either consent to watch it or, they're at least given a heads up, I'd probably go, what's the farthest I can go with this piece? And then go, well, where is my no? Where's my absolute no with this piece? Like that's not going to help. Anything's not really telling a story or whatever. And then sort of walk back from there is what I would guess. And of course, without making excuses, there's a lot of gray area. And in magic too, which is a lot of my background is like witchcraft and paganism and, you know, working with all that ookie kooky stuff. Consent is sometimes consent is a suggestion, and I hate to say that, but when you get to like the razor's edge with some of this stuff, it's hard to find out, well, how can we say what needs to be said if we're trigger warning everything? We know we're living under fascism. Why do I have to give a trigger warning for it? But at the same time, I want to take care of my audience. So if I'm handling extreme violence as, for example, with guns, you know, you want to tell people that's what's happening. Or if you got strobe lights, you got to tell people that stuff. They could go into a seizure. Nobody wants that. Jeez. So, and I think that we are so brand new right now in this evolution. We're evolving emotionally as a people, and I think as a result, right now we happen to be in. There's somebody that I follow called, her name is Teal Swan. She says that we're in a hey girl. We're in an emotional dark age, and I agree with that. In 200 years, we're going to look back and be like, boy, people were really telling their children to stop crying because it was inconvenient. Are you kidding me? Yes. So within the context of being in an emotional dark age, how do you even navigate consent when we don't even know what our emotions are?
Right.
That's kind of where we have to turn in and become responsible to ourselves. Ask the question, how would I wish to be treated? And that is an intention that you can both set and then exemplify, because you can't please all of the people all of the time. You have the right to free speech. You have the right to speak up. You have the right to exercise your opinion. You don't have the right to harm somebody in the process, but not intending to do that means that what you're doing is now nurturing yourself in that space and putting that, you know, that's part of responsible.
Yeah. And part of really, I've been getting into animism a whole lot more. And part of getting into animism is somebody I follow who's a sort of animalist. I would call him an animist philosopher, an animist philosopher, Dear Sohei, Sohei on Facebook. Yeah. But okay, why are we not best friends?
You will be now. You will be now.
And so they talk about being like, sometimes when you get into these questions, like let's say we do a play and we go way over the line and somebody but we're doing it for a reason, all right? And then somebody comes in afterwards and they're like, you made me this way and feel this way. We can say, this is what I was trying to do. This is what a lot of people got out of it. And I think this was a lot of good, and it did good for us. And we're expanding ourselves in that way, and be big enough and expansive enough to say, yes, I can take accountability for understanding that we also released that ghost into the air and gave that ghost spirit, that ghost voice. And that may have impressed upon you in a particular way. Now, what is my responsibility from that? I don't know. Maybe we can find that together.
To go, hey, I'm not going to abandon you in this.
Exactly.
I opened this up. So what, if you know, can I help you through this with, including leave you the hell alone, if that would work.
I love that, because you pointed out something earlier too that I very, very much believe, that where, you know, you see it a lot in theater of cruelty, and you can see it a lot in these found spaces, that there can be an irresponsibility with where the art justifies the beans every time. And so so when we're actually asking people to connect to where am I in this? What am I releasing? What are we actually doing with this? There's an accountability that is different, you know, and I I spent this weekend taking a bunch of amazing workshops with theater intimacy education folks, and I'm so grateful to have been able to make that list. And one of the things that they talked about often within these consent-based spaces is the need for being able, willing, and not enthusiastic, but open to apologizing.
Yeah.
And we are not good at knowing how to apologize as a society. We don't know when we've overstepped a boundary.
We're
what to
much
do
better
next.
at justifying.
And then we
apologizing.
combat, and that's where the combativeness comes from. And so even when you've talked or this moment of being able to know how to be accountable as artists, how can we, if we cross a line, how can we make good, how can we repair the river so that we can keep making, right?
And then there's like a bind. There's a bind too with accountability living under our current structure, where it's like, can we really ever be truly accountable? We can try. We can move towards restorative justice, which may include an apology, may just include an airing of grievances that can be in a safe way where people aren't just pitted against each other like groups of people like warring. But can you? How do you get to a place where you know you're fucked and you still play? That's where I want to know that.
Well, sure.
And where accountability goes into that, and their concepts, and you're like, they're playing with each other, and sometimes it hurts.
Yeah.
You know?
We talked earlier about humility, right? And Flint being a great architect of humility. But the converse of that, the opposite of that, is ego, right? And it is one of the primary chief reasons that we become performers, because it's an opportunity to have our egos fed, especially if we're good at what we do. We get those egos fed quite a bit.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when you start to enter into elements of things like theater of cruelty, and you're a shock jock and it gets you off to be a shock jock, you have to be responsible enough in advance, not after the fact. Because we're talking about apologies and we're talking about, correctability and accountability. But before the fact, you've got to not do what I call that Howard Stern thing. Which is, I get that it works for you. I get that it strokes your ego. I get that it makes you the biggest dick in the room. I get that it makes you money. And I get that, there are some people that really get off on that.
Sure.
What about the people you hurt? You don't make an excuse and go, hey, it's business, or hey, it's a dog eat dog world, or the network said. Those are all justifications and excuses. And at the end of the day, if you break somebody, are you prepared to stand there and even watch? Never mind do something. Are you prepared to stand there and watch them?
And if there is one thing that we do not have in the United States, is the capacity to do conflict resolution, like
that requires
in a healthy way. It also includes like understanding when you're going beyond threshold and calming down, like being able to calm your nervous system. We just get so like, I have to defend myself. I do it too.
Yeah.
Right. We're trying to fight each other and be right. Somebody's got to be wrong. And it's like, it's not necessarily about that.
Right.
That's because we've been raised in a society where we've been told it's a zero-sum game, where if you win, I lose, and vice versa. And so just for personal survival, we're going to be on the defensive because that's what we've been taught. That's the biggest lie we were ever taught.
That's what we were taught socially.
Right.
But spiritually, we were taught do as you want to be done to you.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those conflicting ideas coming from the biggest institutions in your life, right?
Yeah, I think it's a really great point. And watch out, Joey, I'm coming for you. What
do you mean by that, Joey?
I'm trying to say, man.
Who the hell is you people?
Y'all, we are well over time, and I want to thank you.
How dare you?
Awesome! Let's fight. Square up, Joey. Square up.
So I really quickly, first of all, Kate, Renee, like we could just have a whole series of just this.
I love to talk, so
I'm
I'm
like,
into
guys,
it.
You
that's
were
it.
the first person I thought of, Sunshine. I swear.
This is my shit. People tell me to shut up about this all the time. I'm like, no.
Right? Shut up. I know who to talk
Right,
to.
and I think right now, especially in Michigan, we are at this amazing crux. We're at some new crossroads for Michigan theater. I really, truly believe that, and so I just again, Renee, thank you for joining us and talking
you.
about this. As there is a collective, conscious kind of awakening that a lot of people, artists, and folks are going through from
Yes,
our
there
dark age
is.
of our emotional dark age of.
So here for
Yeah.
it.
So it's wonderful to talk, and we're get jealous, everybody, because we're gonna talk after this too. We're just not gonna broadcast. We're just gonna keep talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to say thank you, because this is the kind of authentic background work. You were talking about work early. This is the work that goes into a lot of the productions that our audiences see, and if we're able to do some of this work and homework on our own, we get to see some really interesting new stuff. Because I'm with you. I've seen a lot of the same show over and over again. And look, I love our musicals, but hey, it's exciting to see people who are rethinking, reimagining, and seeing new evolving ways. So thanks again for joining us tonight.
Oh man, and just to be vulnerable, I know we're over time, but I'm going to say some more. Like I've been going through some stuff.
Yeah.
I went through
Everyone.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Kate, Kate said happy birthday to me on LinkedIn. I said, hey, I'm not on LinkedIn hardly ever, but please, like, I want to connect with you. And that's how it happened. She was like,
That's
oh,
how the whole thing
we were
happened.
just, yeah.
She didn't know that I've been following her on Facebook since we left school together.
No,
Just,
no. But the whole spiritual awakening thing and starting to awaken to how fascist America in particular has been
Yeah.
is lonely and violent in and of itself. And so like this connection is just thank you. Like I needed it. Thank you.
We need
Golly, G Willikers. Listen, y'all don't even know. I know you're on TikTok because I followed you. So yes, you. I know you're on TikTok. I followed you. So like my whole
Tori's our TikTok professional. She's like amazing at it.
I'm into
Just
it.
call me Yenta, because I am a matchmaker.
Listen, I'm waving to y'all, but I'm also waving to my TikTok people. Thank you for hanging out with us, by the way. Let me tell you something. This what we're doing, everything that's happened, I don't even know how to put it into words. Like everything is like sticking into alignment right now. Just in general, I know that's how I feel in my personal life. I don't know how you're feeling, but like it was like the dark as shit. And then there was like a break happened, and now all of a sudden I'm just like everything's like seriously, this connection right here, y'all don't understand. Like today,
that's how I feel too.
Morning, I got a message from one of my new followers saying that my what I'm doing on TikTok is like making a difference in their life.
Oh, that's incredible.
2 hours later, I get a message from one of my bosses saying, hey, I'd like to hire you for a 9-hour job that's going to give you $600. Then this happens, and I'm like, now you're my new best friend. Like, can we just say everything happens for reasons, and this feels real good right now?
Everything happens for a reason.
I've said it 1,000 times. My friends right here know me to have said this 1,000 times. When you set about to do a good thing, the universe conspires to assist you.
That's the quote to end this evening on.
That's the quote of the day. So to everybody out there working on your own art, working to conspire to bring down systems of oppression with love, joy, beauty, art, and integrity. I hope that tonight's conversation was able to spur you on with your own doings. And even if you're not, and you're just sitting and stewing in a mess of like, I should be doing something right now because there's a massive spiritual awakening around me and blah, 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 blah. Whatever that is for you, just hope that this is able to give you some fire and light that for you. There are other people out there working on this work, and great work continues.
And we're going to be here, so feel free to keep connecting.
Yeah. Be blessed. Be blessed. Be blessed.
Be blessed.
Likewise.
Be blessed.
All right, everybody. I think that is us. Really quickly, We do have a fundraiser, and I just want to shout it out really quickly. Nick, do you want to talk for just a moment about this lovely thing streaming before we hop off?
Absolutely. Let me just quickly switch to that so that
We had to pitch a little
read
bit.
it
Cool.
easier.
Do it.
Okay.
No
Live
agenda.
under capitalism.
No
Do what you need to
Keep the
do.
lights on.
Hello, everyone. So we are obviously a theatre company, and lights are an important thing for theatre. Wherever you are, having access to decent lights is a really useful thing.
Especially if you're a mobile theater company that
Like us.
plans on taking shows to non-traditional spaces in Detroit.
Exactly. So we have the opportunity to have a great set of lights. But what we need ultimately is to be able to fund the obtaining of those lights.
Yay!
It's all
And
yours.
so we have a GoFundMe set up. It's down there. If you follow any of us, I think we can share it. If you follow me on TikTok, Tripound Redux would be what you want to look for on TikTok. It's in my link tree at the top of my bio. But yeah, that's our GoFundMe. Because we're a 501c3, every little helps, and every little is also tax deductible.
Woohoo!
So
That's a non-profit organization for
that's
those.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, hello, I'm Nick. I talk in weird alphanumeric.
Some people definitely know what that is, but some people might not. So just
Exactly. So yeah, so we're a non-profit. Any little helps, and everything you give us is tax deductible. And
Yay.
you'll really be doing us a solid if you check out the GoFundMe. And even if you can't give but can share it,
yes.
that also helps because it gets more eyes on the
Totally.
fundraiser.
And that includes, like, employers and whatnot that are benefiting from some COVID money and looking for a place to make tax deductible donations before the end of the year.
Good.
So they don't pay for it next year. Don't be afraid to
Good.
talk to your boss about maybe matching contributions. We'll show up, throw you guys a coffee party or something, and get it going if you want.
We'll do
I
a
don't know
murder
if you all
mystery.
saw, right? I don't know if you all
Exactly.
saw us at the very beginning of this, but literally, I was able to hook up one of our new lights and make us look good.
We look way better.
We look way
than
better.
when we
So you
started.
can literally see the difference. So
Before and after.
Were
anyway,
you just
stay
clapping,
cool.
Renee?
We know it's tough times, and so we appreciate any little bits you can offer and help us out with, so we can keep storytelling. So yeah, thank you again, everybody. Shout out real quick to some of our people in the comments. I wanted to say hey to Joey,
Joey.
Bridget, and Sabrina. We love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So
I'm gonna do some shout outs to my TikTok people too. We got
Good.
Jack Mac. What up, Stacy? Thank you so much. Anybody else whose name I can't see, thanks for joining us. This was our monthly talk show, Beyond the Ghostlight, where we talk about art and what it means to be creatives. Thank you so much for joining us.
yay! All right, everybody.
See you soon.
Have a great month. We'll see you in
Mwah, mwah,
December,
mwah.
everybody. Bye.
You guys say goodbye too.
Beyond the Ghostlight.